Greetings YouTube, Skill Incarnate back with the 9th episode of my Project Zomboid tutorial series, set in the sunny town of Drayton. In today's episode I'm going to expand on the previous episode I did on farming. Now, in the last episode we talked a little bit about how to set up a basic farm at ground level. I also talked about indoor and outdoor farms and the difference between them. And finally, we discussed the advantages and disadvantages to different crops and also the ways in which you can combat disease. Now, you'll notice that I have a bit of a farm going now, a little bit more than what we had in the previous episode. But you'll also note that I have a rather small farm. And the reason for that is a scarcity of water. So today we're going to talk about how to gather water a bit more efficiently. And I know I have covered this in previous episodes, but I haven't talked about some of the more advanced ways of gathering water. So we're going to start off with something that I actually found out by accident. In my previous episode, I left this cooking pot sitting on the ground. And I left it outside by accident and forgot about it after my cooking tutorial, and I came back the next day after my character slept and noticed that the cooking pot had filled with water. And it appears after a bit of experimentation that if you leave containers outside overnight, then they will actually fill with water when it rains. This essentially allows you to create a water collector. And while a couple of buckets and cooking pots won't have enough water to fully supply a farm of this size or above, they are a really good way to get free water. Now, this obviously isn't going to work in the dry season. There are different wet and dry seasons during the year. But when it's raining, you can very easily get a week's worth of water in one go. So to utilize this little trick, you're going to need a bucket or a cooking pot. And as I was saying, you'll need a bucket or a cooking pot, and you will also need to leave it outside where the rain can actually get to it. So a good tip is obviously I wouldn't leave it on ground level. The zombies will not actually damage any of these items on the ground, but it can make it quite difficult to get these, to collect them when you're in a spot where you could get attacked. So what I've done is I've got my little balcony here and I've dropped these here. Now when they actually fill up, the water will be tainted and you will need to boil the water. And that's why I've got these sitting right next to my fire. I'll be able to pick these up and put them straight in. Now, as I said before, this isn't the most efficient way to gather water. So we're going to talk a little bit more about how to make a water collector. Now a water collector is just basically this. It's a box with a heap of garbage bags inside, and it essentially collects the water a bit more efficiently than just leaving pots out in the rain. One of these small water collectors can easily service a farm of this size and above. If you're smart and if you use the water and keep the water collector empty and pull the water out of it at every opportunity, you'll never run out of water. Now, to make a water collector, the hardest part of it will be getting your carpentry skill up to level 4. So you will need a carpentry skill of level 4 before you can build a water collector. So if you find that you are struggling to get to the higher carpentry tiers, I'm going to do a future tutorial on exactly how I got my carpentry up to level 4 so quickly. But once you've got your carpentry up to 4, you're going to need to have a hammer in your inventory. Right click on the ground and you'll need to select the carpentry option, and you need to select under furniture, rain collector barrel. Now the recipe for a rain collector barrel is 4 planks, 4 nails and 4 garbage bags. Now planks and nails are easy enough to find. We've already covered how to get these in previous episodes. But in the case of garbage bags, to get garbage bags very easily, you will find them in bins like the one that is here. And you can also find them in any kitchen. They have a reasonable sized spawn chance in any kitchen counter. Now, if you are really unlucky and you cannot find any, you can also go to dumpsters outside, and you'll find dumpsters in any alleyway like the one that is on ground level here. There's actually a couple of dumpsters up that way. And you will have a really good chance of finding multiple garbage bags in any bin or in any dumpster. Now, the last thing that I have to give you before you begin to build a rain collector is, of course, the warning that the rain collector, like any other player-built structure, has a chance of being destroyed by zombies. So this means that you want to build the rain collector barrel ideally somewhere like where I am now, that's off the ground, that's up on the second floor of a building, and with no way for the zombies to get up here. If a zombie destroys the rain collector barrel, not only will you lose all of the water inside of it, you'll also lose the garbage bags and the wood as well. So on a map where the spawn chance of items or the loot rarity is set on high, you can sometimes find that garbage bags can be pretty hard to come by. So this can mean the difference between life and death. If you do have to build a rain collector barrel, and you do have to build it on ground level, I would suggest that you build a walled off structure like the one we have here on the right. I've already talked about how to build these log walls. They're pretty reliable and pretty tough. But otherwise, try and build them upstairs and try and build them nearby all of your crops. Now, to use a rain collector barrel, you can right click on it, and on the rain collector barrel menu item, you will have a remaining value. And this basically represents how much water the rain collector barrel has at any given point. The appearance of the rain collector barrel will change as it fills with water. When it gets to 50%, you'll be able to see that there'll be some water inside of it. And when it gets to 100%, the water will be up to the upper lip of the rain collector barrel. And obviously, you want to check this fairly regularly, and you want to make sure that you are constantly emptying the barrel, because when it's actually full, it can't collect any more, obviously. And you want to have some water containers ready to go to keep your farm going, and also to put some water aside for the dry season, because that's what we're in now. All of my containers are actually empty. Now, luckily, I live near a lake, so I can just easily go and fill those up. So that's how to use a rain collector barrel. The last thing I wanted to talk about was something that has been newly added into the Project Zomboid latest build, which is compost bins. So compost bins, much like real life, are basically a container which you will put your rotten food into. You place the rotten food inside of the bin, and the food will break down. And there's a couple of advantages to this. One, you will get back worms, and this can be very useful for fishing. And two, if you put fruit in here, you will actually get back seeds, and this is a very good way to get seeds for certain fruit that you may not have. For example, I don't have any corn, so putting corn in here gives me a chance to get corn seeds. And any fruit or vegetable that can produce seeds, whether it's in the base game or in Hydrocraft, will actually return a seed for you. So the only downside to this is that it does take a very long time for it to break down food into compost. And I've been waiting 2 weeks for some compost, and we're still not seeing any yet. Now, assuming that you do have some compost in the bin, you can actually fill it up by right-clicking on the bin with a shovel and a sack in your inventory, and you'll be able to fill the sack with compost. And what you can do then is apply the compost to any of your crops. Now, what applying compost to a crop will do is it will progress that crop into the next stage of growth. Every crop in the game has different stages of growth, going from simple cabbages we've got here all the way up to your longer growing and more versatile vegetables like potatoes. Now, using this broccoli as an example, we can see when we right click on it and select info that it is in the ready for harvest stage. What this means is that if I harvest it, it will actually give me broccoli, but it will not give me any seed. Now, if I was to use any of the compost on this, it would progress it into the next and final stage of growth, which will be the seed bearing stage. And this is a very, very good way if you're hungry and if you need some food very quickly. You can boost the speed of crops growing, and you can also get a crop into the right phase where it's ready to be harvested, and you can get your seeds back. So the last thing I will tell you is how to actually build the compost bin. And to build the compost bin, again, select the carpentry option by right clicking, and under furniture you will find it there. It's the composter. Now this only requires a carpentry skill of level 2. You will need 5 planks and 4 nails. All you'll need to do is to go to a fridge or any food container that has old rotten food in it, and take that food out, and it's just basically a container. Dump it into the container, and it takes around a month of in-game time. I've been advised by some of the forum users, and this is a very good way to use something that doesn't really have a good use, which is rotten food. Unfortunately, unless you have a very high cooking skill of 8 or more, you cannot use rotten food, and if you try and eat it, you do run the risk of becoming very ill and possibly dying. So this is a very good use for something that was previously without a use, at least until very late in the game. So that was it for today. It was a bit of a short one, but I wanted to go over how to use a water collector. A lot of people, including myself, was not aware of this, and a lot of people were thinking that to get water, you would have to live right next to a stream, or you would have to go into an area which has a well. So some areas outside of town, like in Muldrow, there's a farmhouse that has a well, and a lot of people were settling there for the sole reason that was the only way they could get water. So you can use these to collect water, and if you get really desperate and you don't have the carpentry skill, then you can get a heap of cooking pots from a kitchen, or you can, if you're lucky enough to be living in a warehouse or in a hardware store, you can get these buckets, leave them outside, and they'll fill up with water. You can boil the water and it'll be safe to drink. So that was it for today's tutorial. I hope you found it useful. I hope you enjoyed it as much as the previous tutorials. Shout out to Russell Graham, who is a fellow Aussie who left me a comment that he has been enjoying my series so far. And hopefully we'll have more tutorials for you next time. Until next time, please leave me a comment, leave me a subscribe, and we'll see you for the next episode. Skill Incarnate out.